Hey everyone, welcome back to ONYX Pages. I'm in Jerry and I am glad you're watching. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the 7 Cowrie Shell Review / Response / Rating System 3.0. So if you've followed this channel since the very beginning when I had my first version of the Cowrie Shell Rating System, then you know that it's gone through a couple of iterations, and now we are going to talk about where I've landed so far. So if you're interested in figuring out how to create your own rating system or what my rating system is about, keep watching. Hey everyone, welcome back to ONYX Pages. I am in my cozy nook with my computer, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the current 7 Cowrie Shell Rating System. But before I get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about how I've used it and how it has informed and impacted my reading in the past year and a half. So as you'll recall, in the past, I have had videos where I've talked about why it's important for me to rate my books using a particular framework. I've said in the past, and this is still true, that doing so allows me to read with integrity, to read with purpose, to make sure that when I'm providing reviews that I'm making sure to highlight the points that are most important to me. I know that a lot of reviewers on BookTube will talk about whether they like or dislike a book. They'll talk about their favorite characters and major plot points and, things like that. And I think that's really important. It's really important that on this platform, we're really authentic and honest about what it is we like and dislike about a book. There's a lot of pressure to follow hyped up books, to follow likes, to follow the algorithm, and to sometimes be dishonest about what we think about what we're reading, especially if we have an unpopular opinion. Or sometimes we have pressure to have an unpopular opinion because negative reviews get more traction on YouTube, especially if you're a Black creator. They really like when Black creators are salty. So sometimes there is a pressure to not be honest and to not focus on the right things when we're talking about why we read. And I noticed that as soon as I started on BookTube, I noticed that I started to wonder whether my own thoughts were good enough, whether they were intellectual enough or entertaining enough. And I learned really quickly, in fact, on the day that I filmed my first video, that I wanted to make sure that when I turned on the camera and talked about a book, that I was sticking to my values and what is important in my view for readers of Black speculative fiction. And that has served me very well, because even when I'm not conducting a 7 Cowrie Shell review, I am actually talking about things that are important to me and important to, I think, to Black people, to African descended people, and I'm picking out those things in what I'm reading. And also the choices that I'm making when I purchase books or ask for advanced readers copies are also informed by this value system, this rating system, because I can usually tell just by reading the synopsis of a book or looking at the perspective of the author or seeing how the book lands in conversation with other books within the genre. I can usually tell if the book is going to give me something that is going to, turn over a cowrie shell or not. And when I see books that have synopses that are very, tropey in a bad way, or that don't seem to ask the right questions, or don't seem to properly interrogate a theme that I'm interested in, I just don't buy them. And I'm just not interested in them. So the seven Cowrie review system has been very helpful, not only in shaping how I talk about books, but also in the books that I purchase, also the authors that I have discovered as a result. So for example, in the past year and a bit, One of the authors who I'm super excited about is Eugen Bacon, who is an African-Australian author and a very, very prolific writer. And everything that I've read that Eugen Bacon has ever written has had such a purpose to it. And I've found myself so excited by some of the areas that she's willing to explore, even in her flash fiction. And so had I not been thinking about these issues, I don't know whether I would have been as attracted to Eugen Bacon's writing or as curious about what her writing would offer. And because I was able to be exposed to her work. And quite similarly, Jennifer Marie Brissett and Adrienne Marie Brown, Mia McKenzie, Alex Jennings, LP Kindred, these are all, Yvette Lisa Novodo, I said your name wrong, I'm sorry, and Shingai and Jerry Kagunda, even, I'm gonna forget her name, but anyway, but there are a lot of really, really new to me authors. There are lots of authors that I know about, but new to me authors, at least in the past couple of years, who I've discovered as a result of the 7 Cowrie Shell review system, because I'm now, I know what I'm attracted to. I know that I really like speculative fiction that's more on the mundane side of things. And so now I'm oriented towards these books, and I'm super excited about what I've been able to read. That said, though, the Cowrie Shell system has evolved over time. And last year I rejudged it a little bit to make sure that the Cowrie Shells were really matching my changing views. I have a feeling that it will probably change again and evolve this year, but that's okay, because Octavia told us that God has changed, so that's cool. But I want to tell you right now what I'm working with. So there are still 7 Cowrie Shells. The first Cowrie Shell is world building, and that's been consistent through all 3 versions. The second is the fantastic. And so here I've broadened the idea of the magical system, because it's not always going to be about magic, but there will be some element of the fantastic that I'm going to be looking for. So that's the second. So we've got world building, the fantastic, points of view. It matters to me who is telling the story, and I still care about why and how an author has chosen to shape the voice of the narrator. One of the reasons why that's so important to me is that stories are told about Black queer folks all the time, and not all narrators are trustworthy. So having a Cowrie Shell that forces me to think about who is telling the story and how the teller of the story might shape the actual story itself is a very interesting question for me. I'm also still interested in the characters. I want to know their identities. I'd like to think about how well they were developed. I'd like to think about whether the characters represent the diversity of African communities around the world, whether we're getting stereotypical or prejudicial views of certain characters based on their identities, or whether we're being offered something interesting and new that causes me to expand the way that I think about myself and the world and others. I'm also thinking about options. Now, options, this comes specifically out of Walida Imarisha's social visionary fiction. And what I learned from her, and I've got an interview with her on this channel, a couple I think, what I like about the social visionary fiction is that it's important to know what options the main character is given. Like what choices are they being forced to make throughout the story, and do the choices that the characters make help us to better examine and assess the choices that we make in our own lives, because we're making choices that are either in the interest of African peoples or not every day. So I'm still interested in the idea of options, but I'm going to be looking at that one to see if there's another way that I can frame it that is a little bit easier for me to work with as a concept. The sixth cowrie shell is relevance to Black queer lives. I doubt that's going to change, especially since I've identified Black queer folks and Black queer writers as my focus going forward. And then the reading experience, because it's obviously important to talk about how I felt reading the book, whether I liked it, whether I didn't, whether I found myself laughing, crying, rooting for a particular character or not. So that's the 7 Cowrie Shell System 3.0. World building, the fantastic, points of view, characters, options, relevance to Black queer lives, and the reading experience. So I'm going to be using that system this year, and I'll also be examining it to see if I should be graduating to the 7 Cowrie Shell System 4.0 and shift up some of the prompts. So if you're interested, this is a question for you. First of all, if you've watched this video all the way to this point and you're not subscribed, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you'll be aware of any videos that I have coming forward, and that you can be a part of this reading community. So once you've subscribed and done all of that, in the comments, I'd like to know whether you would like me to do a series of videos where I drill down on each of the 7 cowrie shells in the cowrie shell system. I've been thinking about doing something like that. I've also been thinking about whether I should host a 7 cowrie shell system tag or a 7 cowrie shell system challenge, as a way to sort of bring the 7 cowrie shell system sort of outside of my own personal reading interests and personal sort of channel goals, but to offer it to others, other booktubers or other readers, as a way that they can approach reading Black speculative fiction. If that's something that you think would be interesting to you or to others, I would love to hear your thoughts about that, and as I continue to think about it. So if you've watched this video all the way to the end, I thank you, and I would love for you to put a shell emoji in the comments. I don't think there's a cowrie shell yet, but you can put a shell emoji along with your comment, and I look forward to seeing what you have to say and responding to you. So that's it for now. Remember to read with purpose in whatever way, shape, or form that is for you. And when you do, please tell me about it. See you in my next video.